a second here and just set this up real quick for you. All right, perfect. So thank you for joining us this morning. Today we'll go over the application process for the Masters of Public Policy and Global Affairs program. As we go through the application, I'd ask that you hold all your questions until the end of the session so that we can all kind of gather around, and in case your question is answered during the formal presentation, then we can get to it later. I'll also enable the Q&A function for later as well. But basically what will happen is we'll go through the entirety of the application process, and then we'll have time for questions and talking about that afterwards. And I'll go into the application. So if you just Google MPPGA, your first two options are going to be one, either the main School of Public Policy and Global Affairs website where it has our graduate program here. It'll take you to this page. This is, I believe, the first link. And to get to the application, you can hit the graduate program ribbon and hit start your application over here. In which case, clicking on this will send you to UBC's application. Here, just a few notes of things that you'll need. So 3 letters of recommendation, official copies of transcripts, your most current resume or CV, and then for international students that require it, your English language test scores. The second option that you will have when you Google it is the graduate and postdoctoral studies websites. And here, this is what that looks like. And you could just hit apply now here. Or alternatively, if you want to seek more information, you can hit to the program website here as well. Now, when you click on these links, it'll take you to the eVision website, which is basically UBC's graduate studies platform for application. And then it'll ask you to either apply with an existing campus-wide login or CWL, or if you don't have one already, to create a CWL here. So you have those two options there. So I already have one for this purposes of this presentation. So I'll go ahead and hit apply. And then I'll ask you to log in here. And then you are to your application homepage here. So I've been doing this for a little bit, so I have a few open applications here, but we'll go to the most recent one. So here you can see what program that you are applying for and the status and with the year of your application. So we'll go ahead and go into edit here, but you can, at the top right here, you can select start a new application there. And we'll go to the first page here. So this is the sequence of the application itself. Here, you can take a look at all the details here. If you look at the top here, you'll see your student or CWL number, programs start date, as well as the deadlines here at the top right. So some details there. And the first page that you'll land on is this use of information page. So this will basically tell you all the reasons that we're collecting information and the use that we'll have for that information, so that you are aware of your data and the reasons why it's being used. So you can let us know how you found out about the program and about UBC through this drop-down list, and then read through quickly or take your time actually through this process, just so that you again are aware of the uses of your information, so that you can better protect that as well. As you go through the application, you can also skip through each section. You don't need to necessarily go through them in sequence, but typically going to the bottom here, you'll always have the option to either save and exit or save and continue. And then it'll take you to the next page of the application. So this introduction will go through the application a little bit more detail. So what you'll need, the different documentation, payments, information, and what you'd need for that. So for payment, we only accept credit card at the moment. So just please be aware of that, as we have had applicants recently come into right before the deadline have some banking issues, and that kind of delays their application, which means we can't get back to them as quickly as we'd like. So please be aware of that as well. It says here about 45 to 60 minutes. I would say probably um 60 to maybe like an hour and 15, I would say, depending on how much you've already prepared for the application as well. And then make sure that you just have, cookies and JavaScript enabled here at the bottom. Going into your personal details, so things like your given name, your gender, country of birth, current citizenship, etc., etc. If you are a former UBC student, lots of this will be populated for you conveniently. If you are not a former UBC student, then you'll have to kind of fill all that in there. So look carefully, make sure that all of this information is correct as possible. You have your language details here as well, so you can input any other spoken languages that you frequent. Your contact details, needless to say, this is important. Please fill that in to the best of your ability. And at the bottom here, we have two optional details. So the racialized identity as well as students with disability. Racialized identity, self-identifying as a person belonging to a racialized group, enables us to connect with different programs at UBC and services. So again, completely optional if you decide to identify as such, right? And then students with disability. So here, the intent is to provide those that require special considerations to have access to UBC's Access and Diversity Services. So if you have any disabilities or medical conditions that might impact your studies, you can reach out to Access and Diversity here. Basically, they will provide an assessment for you, and they will deliver us a letter basically outlining what you need on campus. And then whatever it is that they say you need, we will deliver. On. Moving into academic history, this is where you can upload all of your transcripts for all the different degrees that you'll be submitting. And please note that we do require, let's say, if you just did, one semester abroad, you did some transfer courses at a local college, for example, we do need to see all of that information and coursework here as well. For international student transcripts, there is a guide link here that you can use to submit with the following details. And the transcripts that you upload must be your official transcripts. So when we talk about official transcripts, what we mean is that we need to see on those transcripts, obviously your grades. We need to see a signature from a registrar or similar level of official. We need to see a watermark of the institution as well. And we need a grading rubric. If you are sending an application with transcripts from outside of UBC, we need a grading rubric so that we can fairly assess your grades. UBC receives applications from all over the world, and so it's important that and we want to assess your grades fairly based on the sending institution. So please make sure that that is included as well. So here, academic history 1, we'll say, you can select your the location of the institution, so the sending country here. You can type in your full institution name. As you type, there will be different lists that come out of a dropdown. So let's say I start typing Simon. Oh, Simon Fraser University is not here. Okay, SFU. What shall? Yeah, so there's these different institutions that come up. So if it comes up in the drop-down menu, it just makes it easier for us to kind of, again, locate and assess. If not, just please type in your institution name, approximate start date, and approximate or expected end date. So if you are in the midst of your studies, you can let us know what your approximate end date is. and then your field of study, you can just let us know here. You can just type that out. And then here is where you are uploading your files here. So please make a note of these different file types that we accept and the file size limit. And then if you have received a degree from or another credential from this institution, if it's been awarded, if it's in progress, or if you only took some courses, for example, there. If you were required to withdraw or suspend study from this institution for any period of time, you can select that there, as well as let us know and provide the details. So, if you had a family tragedy, if you had to take some time away from your studies, you can provide the details and the reasoning for that here as well. Academic history two, same thing, going on to your next academic history, depending on what your academic history is. You can either remove or add another piece of history as well. So just add another history there, or you can remove it, or you can remove it. All right. Go on to the next piece. We have test scores. So this section is only if it's applicable for you. This is basically if you are an international student and you did not complete your studies at a English speaking institution, you can upload your test scores here. And it'll go over the details of what is required for those tests. So again, you can see those right over here. The TOEFL score, 600 paper, 100 internet score, no component score below 22. For the IELTS, it's minimum score of 7.0 with no component below that as well. Tests are good for 2 years, and you can input all that information here. And at the point as well, you should also have already assigned that for electronic sending as well. At this point in time, we don't accept any other English proficiency tests aside from the IELTS and the TOEFL. So you can please disregard the rest of this information down here. We are in the process of kind of overhauling and assessing different tests, but that won't be in time for this current round of application. So this funding section here, all of our applicants submitted before January 20th will be automatically assessed for potential entrance scholarships. So if you have a scholarship already available, if you have a full scholarship where you won't be needing any additional funding, please note that down here. And if you have any other um, funding packages that you're entering with, this does not impact the admissions assessment for receiving a spot in the program as well. So don't worry about, if I input anything here, will that affect my, assessment? Like, it's not like we're gonna, you know, bump you in the line if you have all this funding, basically. So it is a holistic and fair process. So don't worry about that. But this is just so that if you have a full scholarship already, basically, then we won't need to assess you for an entrance scholarship, and that money can go to someone else. All right. Moving on to experience and interest. So this is where we have a few different essay style questions. So please note the instructions here. We're going to be asking you about your academic, professional, and other experiences that are relevant to this graduate program. Your answers should focus again on the information that can't be inferred from your transcripts or your of your letters of reference or your resume. So again, please take note to answer the questions that you have here. That is one of the things that kind of trips people up in this application. Remember to answer these questions in full as best you can. And then please pay attention to the character limit, and they do include spaces. So you can see that here. Again, each text-based answer should be no longer than 1,200 characters. That includes spaces, except for the Sustainable Development Goal question. That is the second question down over here, where you get double the character limit. So all those characters just all in here as well. Here you're also selecting your stream of choice. So you can choose stream 1, stream 2, stream 3 here, depending on what your interests are. And please note that the streams it is quite flexible. So you're not locked into one stream for the duration of your degree. There is room to kind of be flexible around that as well. Please, yeah, take your, this is probably the thing that will take the most time in your application if you have not already pre-written your answers. Please take your time here to really think about your answers. This is where you can showcase your writing abilities, your own personal and individual thoughts, and you can, again, just really, really, really emphasize taking your time here. Moving on to additional questions. So here we're going to ask about the our soft requirements. So microeconomics, macroeconomics, and statistics. Here you can just let us know if you have taken those courses. You do not need to take the courses before the application uh, is submitted. You can again take these courses the summer before the program starts. Just let us know again if you have taken these courses or how you plan to take these courses if you are choosing to do so. There has been a change this year where the microeconomics and macroeconomics courses are no longer hard required because we are offering these economics courses in your first year. However, if you have already done so, you can skip that course and take other interesting courses. So that's the benefit of that. We will still need to see again the statistics requirements before you start the program in July. So that's for that here. And then at the end of this year, uploading your your curriculum vitae or your resume. And then at the bottom here, we give you this text box in order to address any other information that you might feel is important for the admissions committee to know when evaluating your application. So feel no need obligation to write anything here, but if there are certain things that, again, let's say you had to take some time off school, there's a big gap in your employment, for example, for reasons that you want to go into a little bit more detail here, this is the space and the time for you to do so. Right? If you have any other credentials that might be useful, or if you have any other details that might be useful in allowing us to assess your application, that's the time. Moving on to references. So here you'll give all of your reference details and contact information. Please note your referees will receive a notification as soon as you submit, as soon as you submit your application. So it would be good to, if you are planning to submit your application a little bit later in January, just to let them know so that they can probably pre-writing your letters of recommendation. So that they don't start writing, let's say, if you were to apply just before the deadline and they only have a few days left, to write and submit your letter, that they have a little bit more time and warning. Please pay attention here as well to the requested app references. So again, if you're within 1 to 5 years of your most recent either undergraduate or graduate degree, we will ask for a minimum of 2 academic references. If it's been more than 5 years, then we'll ask for a minimum of 1 academic reference. The remaining references should be either a professional or community reference. And please note that only 1 community reference may be used. So here you enter their information, their name, institution or organization, what their title or occupation was, selecting their referee type here. If they are a community reference, you can select professional. Address, and when we're talking about all these contact informations, make sure that it doesn't need to be their personal address or city, country, origin. This is the institution or the organization's information here. So you don't have to worry about finding their personal home address, their email here as well, so that we can contact them, their phone number, etc., etc. So here you can also include notes that you can send them. So if you wanted to make sure that they were covering a certain project that you did with them or a certain topic that you want them to discuss in your letter, you can let each individual reference note here, and you can have space for kind of 1, 2, and 3 references here. Lastly, we'll go through the application summary. So this will let you know basically what sections are missing, required fields. So you can take a look before submitting your final application. You'll have the application fee summary assessment here. So I didn't enter a country code. So it's still assessing me as an international student here. So that will be 168.25 Canadian for the application itself. Waiver determinations if you are eligible for application fee waivers. and then your final payment details here. Then you'll proceed to declaration and submission of your application by clicking on this button at the bottom here, and then it'll take you to payment details as well. So for example, it's 168. So let's say if I were to go here, back to my personal details, country of birth, and select Canadian. Save and continue that. Then we'll go to the application summary. It should assess, yeah, so domestic application fee will be 116.25 there. Okay, so that is the application. At this time, I will invite all of you to make use of the Q&A function and let me know if you have any questions. We do have a question here already about scholarships, so I'll go ahead and answer that. So that's live. So are there opportunities for scholarships and how much? So we do have opportunities for scholarships within the program itself. We have a few. All students, again, if you submit your application before the January 20th deadline of next year, you will be assessed for automatic entrance scholarships. We typically say that that can cover up to 50% of your total tuition, regardless of if you are an international or domestic student. So if you're an international student, you will be assessed 50% of your international tuition. If you are a domestic student, you will be assessed basically 50% of the domestic tuition. So we also have a few named scholarships and some continuing scholarships. The big one is the Phil Lind Fellowship that was released last year. That's a $15,000 Canadian scholarship that you must apply for. We have some, again, continuing scholarships that you can be assessed for if you're doing well within the program. That's to the tune of about $1,500 to $3,000 each as well. So will our application be assessed on a per question basis or as a whole? So typically your application will be assessed based on 4 different pillars. That's your grades, your reference letters, your resume or your CV, and your answers to the experience and interest, those paragraph essay questions. We'll assess those 4 individually, and then we'll add up those final scores together, and that is how we'll arrive at your final application score. I can only share official transfers through a share credit directly to UBC, therefore I kind of upload it to the platform. Is that okay to upload it? So Angie, I would send us an email. I'll also put in our program email here. So MPPGA at program@ubc.ca. If there are any particular questions that I'm not able to answer and you need to get back to us, please send an email to that program email so that we can track your individual question and get back to you in a timely manner. So Angie, I would, in that case, I would email our program email and then we can kind of workshop an answer to that question a little better. I've not taken an economics course. What should I expect and how would the summer courses work? So if you have not taken an economics course, that's fine. What you can do is there is a list of courses that you can take online, basically, that you can use to fulfill that soft requirement. So things like Coursera, Cloud Academy, et cetera, that are free. We're not asking you to take, another 6 credit, X amount of dollars per credit course. It's not the intent, right? But again, if you don't have those economics courses, you'll take those courses through the year. So starting September, essentially. If you are planning to finance your degree through your personal finances, you don't necessarily need to mention that in the funding section, but you can if you'd like. Does the chance of being admitted decrease over time? If I apply in January, will my chances be lower? So to that, I would say no. We look at all of the applications together in January. So if you apply early, there is not really too much benefit aside from the your ability then to plan out a little better what your what your next year is going to look like, so that you can start looking at housing and other accommodation things, right? If that is the case. So, but no, you won't. We look at all of the applications together once the deadline has passed. So there's if you submit your application early, there isn't really an early assessment for you. Are there any other deadlines other than January 20th that you should be aware of? Yes. So the reference deadlines will be a week later, I believe on January 27th, 28th. So that just gives your references a little bit more time to get things in. We understand that it's not necessarily the student's fault if the references don't come in on time. So we have a little bit of leeway there. So there's that deadline as well. If you are deciding to not um, need to be assessed um, for the entrance scholarships, we do have a later deadline of April 1st that you can be applying through as well. That is if we have seats available and if we have, um, we won't be assessing you for entrance scholarships at that point as well. So you won't be you won't be eligible for the in-house scholarships at that time. I have a gap in my undergraduate due to personal circumstances, which had the extended degree duration. Will this lower my chances of acceptance despite substantial experience in strong GPA? So if you have a gap in your undergraduate due to personal circumstances, that won't necessarily um, impact you as much as you might think. So just let us know again in that additional questions section here. And you'll probably also you can mention that in your depending on the degree that you're submitting that with in your academic history, you can let us know there, and we'll assess that accordingly. So I wouldn't worry too much about that as it's quite the assessment's quite fair, I would say. The decision will be so once you submit your application, depending on when you submit your application, it should be if you submit a fully complete application, meaning all your documents are there, we don't have to chase you down for any documentation that should have been submitted, then it should be about 5 to 6 weeks before you hear back from us. So if you think about a January 20th deadline, you should hear back by late February, early March at the latest. The experience and interest section. So this section here will be assessed as an individual section. Yes. How big is typically the yearly cohort? So the cohort in the last few years has ranged anywhere between 40 to 65 students so far. That is based on the admissions committee basically and what they're finding. We haven't really assessed what our standalone cohort size will be for the coming years. This is a relatively newer program. We've been around for about 7, 8 years now, and we haven't quite found our sweet spot of how big or how small we want the court to be. So that's about what it's at right now. It really just means that we either added one section or we subtract one section of core courses. And yeah, it'll be about 5 to 6 weeks for you to find out your results. Again, if you submit a complete application by January 20th, then you should receive your an answer from that by about 5 6 weeks out. Going over the structure of the program. Do we have time for that here? I guess so. So the structure of the program again. So you're looking at a 20-month professional program with that's 2 years academic or with one semester in between. Your first year is going to be very academic, and then your second year is going to be a little bit more hands-on with the global policy project. The summer semester in between is utilized more for courses or your co-op internship or your other more courses again. And then you'll come back at the end of the program, just before graduating, having completed your global policy project, where you're presenting your project client-based project work to the client itself and to us and the rest of the school through a TED Talk style symposium. To How much emphasis is placed on academic grades during the application process? If an applicant has significant work experience, can it help compensate for less than excellent academic performance? Yes, it can. So again, your application is going to be assessed on four different pillars: your grades, your reference letters, your resume, as well as the answers that we have here to the experience and interest section, your short essay answers. So that will be all of those sections will be assessed individually. We'll score them individually, and then we'll add up those scores for a final score at the end for your total application, and that's kind of how we'll get your final score. So it is possible for stronger areas to make up for weaker areas in your application. Does this master's offer a postgraduate work permit? So there is lots of changes going on with the postgraduate work permits for international students. So luckily, our program is not being changed too much just because of the nature and the duration of our program. But I would implore you to be aware of the changes of the postgraduate work permits. Again, for the most part, our uh, our program is pretty unchanged in terms of eligibility, as we are at a university, we're at a graduate level, and we are a 20-month program. So that means um, our program is still eligible for postgraduate work permit. However, it is important that you are applying for that, I believe, while your student visa is still active. If you are applying for that work permit after your student visa expires, you will have to apply for a second visa, in which case that will back that up, and then you run into the risk of all these other immigration issues. Again, I am not a immigration professional, so I would implore you to reach out to UBC's international student advising. So what you can do is just Google UBC international student advising. Type that here. You can get in contact with someone from their office about all these immigration questions as well. Are there conference opportunities? So this program it's a professional based program. So you're not writing a thesis. You are not required to acquire a supervisor for your research. The main work of this program is going to be that global policy project where you're going to be working with clients domestically and internationally on policy issues that they've identified within their field of work or within their organization itself. That's really the meat and bread of this program. There are some conference opportunities, such as the CAPA program or the Canadian policy competition, essentially. Um, I wouldn't say there's too many. If you find an interesting conference opportunity that you think is worth exploring, you can let our faculty know, and we can see how best we can support you. If you wanted to put together a small group, for example, for that conference, but it's not, again, the main feature of this program, I would say. Curious what students typically learn from this program. Current thesis focus on AI ethics and deepfakes, and notice that many courses offered seem to be related to economics, environmental issues, and other areas. So again, so the core courses around our program again revolve around our streams. So development, social change, resources, energy and sustainability, and global governance and security. Those are the main kind of areas that we have in focus for our programming. You can take a look at our courses on our website as well to see kind of what's going on there. You do have also the opportunity to create your own stream as well here. So it's here for design your own stream. That will be based on what courses that we have available and basically the justification for what coursework that you would like to take outside of the core courses and the courses that we have available. You do have space and opportunity to take, I believe, 1 to 2 courses outside of our programming, so across the rest of the university. That can also augment again your choice of stream or your design of your own stream as well. In terms of, let's say, AI focus and deepfakes, I don't think we have too many courses around that, though we did anecdotally off the top of my head, we did have a student who graduated last year who did design their stream around AI policy. In terms of the acceptance rate of this program, we receive typically about 300 applications or more every year. And again, the cohort size has ranged anywhere between 40 to 65 students in the last few years. Future career paths and job opportunities. So typically, our students go either one of two directions, either in the public sector or the private sector. So if they're going into the public sector, you're more often than not going to be working or receiving job opportunities through the either federal, municipal, or provincial governments. Um, as a junior policy analyst or a some sort of junior officer within the government. If you're going through the private sector, you're looking more at a consultancy position with different organizations or companies where they need people that have policy experience so that they work with government quite parallel so that you can advise them on policy issues that they might run into as well. Some students do continue in academia. Some students do go on to kind of private think tanks, et cetera, et cetera. But those are kind of more of the outliers, I would say. Okay, we'll give space for another about 5, 10 minutes if there are any other questions, but that's all the questions that have been submitted so far. And again, I thank you for your patience as I am battling this cold. So thank you again. All right, and we don't if we don't have any other questions as well, I'm gonna put my email here as well. So you have the program email, you have my personal email, and then you have UBC's International Student Advising if you need to make use of those as well. So again, you're gonna leave the session. You're probably gonna have a million questions that you forgot to ask, and it's just gonna come up. It is how these things work. And you can always send me an email or send the program an email to ask more specific questions or to follow up on things that you have asked or follow up. Last question. So for securing a co-op, will the SPPGA help out? Yes. So how the co-op program works for us is we have our own co-op job board. So you'll have to apply to the co-op program and then you'll apply to the different jobs that we have on our job board. This is basically a secret hidden job board that only our students can see and utilize. So you're only going to be competing for these roles with the maybe 40 to 65 students that are in the program, but maybe only, a little bit more than half of those will want a co-op position, right? So that's kind of your competition there. So it's a really, really, really good way for you to receive and acquire some experience there as well. There are other job opportunities within the program. There's some research assistant positions. There are TA positions, so teaching assistants. You can utilize all the different faculties on campus as well. You don't need to just be a TA with our program. So if you're coming, for example, let's say with with more of a science background, and you're wanting to utilize a position, let's say in the science undergraduate department that's in biology, and you can TA for those positions as well. And from what I understand, they're quite lucrative positions and they pay quite well for the hourly rate as well. Are there past students or alumni we can talk to? Most folk will reach out to alumni via LinkedIn. That's something that's people have done. But if you are interested in, again, speaking to an alumni, email us at the program, again, mppga.program@ubc.ca, and request that you talk to an alumni there, and we can set you up with something there as well. Other frequently asked questions that I can think about again. So just to emphasize, really, this for your application, this experience and intersection, this is where folk typically kind of like it's the application is theirs kind of to lose. Really take your time, really expand on your ideas here, really use up that character limit here. And because this is the place where you can really differentiate yourself from others in the application. So take your time filling this out, please. It's only to your benefit. Okay. We'll stop sharing there for now. And that is seems to be all the questions that we have for this morning. So I want to thank you all once again for joining us here today. And again, if you have any other questions, please feel free to reach out to me in the future, and we can get those questions answered. Your application deadline is January 20th, but again, I would advise submitting a little bit earlier than that so that you have time to get all of your ducks in a row. Um, Next steps after that will be again to apply, and then meet us again if you have any other questions. We'll be sending some follow-ups throughout December as well as January. And that will be all for me this morning. Thank you so much for joining us today, and we'll see you, and we eagerly await your applications. Thank you.